Hello and welcome back to Chazin-the-Dream. I'm Ethan Chazin, the host of this lovely podcast where we dive into all things culture. And I'm super excited to have with us today Tiffany Slowinski. And I want to give a little bit of background and narrative to her career. And then we're going to jump right in and talk about all things culture. So welcome to the program, Tiffany.
Hi, Ethan. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So Tiffany's a seasoned entrepreneur and the co-owner of not one, but two successful franchises alongside her husband, Jake.
Three coming next month.
Are you kidding? Three!
I feel and that's not public knowledge yet, but I guess it'll be when this podcast comes out.
It's a secret. I feel like Count Dracula. 1, 2, 3 successful franchises. That's awesome news. And she is a franchise owner, soon to be of 3 with her husband, Jake. And as a mother of 4 spirited daughters, I don't know how you do it. I have 1, and that's romantic enough. Tiffany's found inspiration in both her family life and professional career, which, again, I don't know how you manage both, but we'll talk about.
I can't say we're managing. We're doing both.
Well, yeah. You know what? I like that better. Doing. That works better. I like that better. Doing. Work-life balance. And with a solid background as a former VP of sales for a national franchise, Tiffany possesses expertise in optimizing work culture and driving tangible results, which is obviously always the challenge. Her unique approach focuses on cultivating a positive and productive workplace environment, which we love, driving both top and bottom line sales. And under Tiffany's leadership, in under 3 years, the franchise count has more than doubled. Under the banner of Team Spark Advisors, hire, retain, empower best employers, Tiffany integrates a culture index, which we're going to dive into her consulting services. And this invaluable culture index tool allows her clients to gain some pretty profound insight into their teams, improve communication, heighten productivity, enhanced employee satisfaction, which if you've been listening to this podcast at all, that's what we talk about here. Tiffany's educational journey includes earning a master's degree in psychology from Columbia University here in New York City. Woohoo! And we're going to dive right into today's podcast and conversation with Tiffany. So again, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So right out of the gate, I have to ask, why franchising? How you came to this point? Was it always something that you were interested in?
No.
For the uninitiated, you had told me about before, so it's kind of like I'm cheating. But
yeah. So my husband had stumbled upon the opportunity. I thought it was a good fit for us, and that's how we first got involved with it. But no, definitely not a lifelong dream. My career actually started as a guidance counselor. So I went to Columbia, got my master's in counseling psychology, and went and joined the public school district for 13 years before realizing that wasn't really the best fit for me. Loved the children, loved my time there, but it was time to move on. Mm-hmm. I started doing some advertising sales for a local website I was working on. And that's when my husband came across City Lifestyle Publications, and we bought in and started producing local magazines. So it's been a journey, and it's been amazing, but no, definitely not. I wouldn't say a lifelong dream.
So how does somebody get from this passion for education to ad sales into franchising? Like we always talk about the logic or the connection of a narrative arc of a career. How do you go from education to sales to franchising? Because it's a really interesting journey.
Yeah. And it's funny, a lot of educators actually reach out to me because I have a lot of former friends in the field and they know my journey. And so they'll ask me for advice, and a lot of them are afraid to leave. And I felt like that for a long time. I didn't understand that my work skills were transferable. So I thought, well, I mean, even beyond my initial master's, I went on and took so many more classes and got certifications and different things. And I felt like I kept doubling down on something I didn't really want to do because that's my style. I'm like, well, I'm going to go all in.
Yep.
And you feel all of a sudden you wake up, and for me, I was in my mid 30s and didn't feel like I had any work experience, which was not true. I learned a ton and done a ton while I was there, but I just knew it didn't feel right for me for the long haul. And now that I understand my personality better through the culture index and all the work I've been doing the last few years, it makes a lot of sense to me. I am a risk taking nonconformist. So for me, working in an environment that is highly regulated, right? It's a school district. It has to be. There's
Right.
a lot of rules. This is
Right.
what we're doing. You report at this time, leave at this time. You're expected to do X, Y, Z. In the early years might have been, okay, I'm young and this is fun and it's challenging. And then as the years went on, I just felt very stifled. So for me, it probably education never made sense to begin with. And so
But that's
I
only
feel
with the
lucky to,
benefit of hindsight.
oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So now any young person, and because I have a culture index, I'd survey them. And if they've got certain traits, I think they'd be a great teacher, counselor. And if they have other traits, I might say, you might want to look into something where that gives you a little more autonomy.
Yeah. I would love it if, and I have to be selfish about this because after we spoke the first time, I was going to ask other questions and lead it to culture index, but it just seems like it's kind of like the heart of everything that you do that you love to do. Is I'm going to go right there if that's
Okay.
okay. This thing called the culture index. What is it? How did you come upon it? How did you develop it? What was the rationale for it? Because you had me do it and you're sitting there kind of going over my results. You're saying you're this, you're this. I'm like, yep, 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 yep. So how did this come about?
Yeah. So I was actually a client of the culture index first. And when I was a VP of sales, we started utilizing it and working with an advisor. And I think given my psychology background, I was instantly hooked. I was like, wait, there's a tool that can show you who somebody is in their personality at a fundamental level. And it's easy and it takes 7 minutes. It's not oppressive to ask somebody to take this. It's not like there's
It's not at all. I was blown away with how simple it was and how spot on it was when you shared with me, you walked me through the results.
And the funniest piece of that was looking at it and looking at my own results. My whole life, I'd always felt a little different. And that's like a real funny thing to say. And I'm like, oh, everybody feels that way. Everybody thinks they're different or special or whatever. And when I saw my results on paper, I was like, oh, I actually have traits that most people don't have. So that was kind of reaffirming. Or I would see things like in my own personality traits, I have like zero patience. And I always knew I was an impatient person. I literally like walk faster than other people. I get asked to slow down when I speak. Oh yeah. I can't take it. I go to the supermarket and if there's like a poor old lady in the middle of the aisle, I'm like ready to like mow her down. And I'm like, this is taking forever. And then I get on the line. And if the poor cashier doesn't know how to like really move it, I'm like, come on, let's go. So yes, I knew I was impatient, but when I saw it on paper that I fall in the bottom 1% of humans on earth in patience, it was like, whoa, that's me explained. But it also led me to an understanding that that lack of patience, which is a huge downside to me, is also my greatest gift because I can accomplish the work of two people in a day. I move fast and so that's my motor. That's my energy. That's where I get things done. So it was just very fascinating to kind of learn about myself and then learn about the people around me as well.
Yeah, and that's really what I was hoping we could also talk about because so as you're walking me through this culture index that you now apply in what you do for your clients, it was very clear as you walked me through my personality, my preferences on communication style. It was very logical because it matched things I knew about myself. But I guess my question for you, Tiffany, is so how do you take that on an individual level, right? And apply it with your clients in terms of interpersonal communication, conflict resolution, like appropriateness of hiring to fit culture. Like, how does that fun stuff get in? Because to me, that's the exciting part about being able to build a great culture.
Yeah. So we think we know somebody based off of very limited interactions. And that's what a job interview is. You show up with your best self that day and you're motivated because you want the job, but you're not really seeing who somebody intrinsically is. And one of the profiles that most blew me away was when I surveyed my best friend since middle school. And she was the exact opposite of what I thought. And I was like,
How does that happen?
like, how is this possible? And when I read it back to her, and she was like, oh yeah, that's me. And I was like, how did I never pick up on this? And then all of a sudden, all the bells are going off in my head, like ding, 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 this and ding, 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 that. And I was like, despite being friends for 30 years, I didn't even truly know her, right? And so when you have this information in front of you for your teams, for your coworkers, for potential hires, you're getting down to the core of who they are, and you're able to appropriately place them. So if it's a position that requires a high amount of detail and structure and very task-oriented work that needs to be done a certain way, there's certain profiles that are going to love that. Oh, I was made for this. Put me in the spreadsheets. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to crunch my numbers all day. And then there's other people where could they do that work? Sure. I mean, back against the wall, they got to get something done. They're going to go in their spreadsheet. They're going to do their numbers, but they're never going to do it the same way as somebody who innately has those traits to do that. Sales. This comes up all the time. My profile, when I saw it, was like, ding, 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 do sales. And people had always told me, Tiffany, you should go into sales. And I always thought that was like a dirty word. Like, why would I sell anything to anyone? That's so off-putting. And yet I had spent my whole life talking people into things, persuading them, using my natural social ability.
Yeah, yeah.
Yet I didn't think I would like sales. And then boom, lo and behold, oh yeah, I'm made for it, right? But in sales, it's not just about being friendly. And I happened to be so. There's people who are not particularly friendly who are great at sales. It really, with that comes down to more, are you autonomous? Are you a hunter? Are you going to go out? Are you going to find prospects? Are you going to follow up? And actually not being too detail oriented, because when salespeople get really into the weeds and really into the details, they actually scare people sometimes. They shut them out. They give them too much information. So sometimes it's the people who are a little more freewheeling, less conforming, less detail oriented that actually go in there and they get that job done.
It makes perfect sense when you explain it, not just because it makes perfect sense, but also, the overlay if you've had any kind of experience with personality assessments and you kind of understand how it can either confirm what you've known about yourself, which we did when you walked me through the index that we did for me, or like you said with your friend, it can make you go, wait, how did I not see some of that? Oh, okay, now that I look back. But I guess my question is, and I know it's in there, but my question is, okay, so how now this understanding of myself when I work with Tiffany, or I understand my team members, how does Tiffany help me kind of piece it together in terms of how they fit into a really high functioning team? Like, because obviously you've got all these individuals and you said, okay, now I know them. How do we put it together?
So I am a consultant. I come in and I work with a company. And so it's not just take a survey, do an hour call, and like, good luck, see you out there.
Bye.
Because there's implementation, right? Because we'll all learn things and go, that's fascinating. That's so interesting. And then we shove it in our desk drawer and kind of forget about it because the next initiative comes up and you start moving on.
Yeah.
So as different things come up, conflict, things that aren't going well, conversations, I'm there to talk people through it. And by having that information in front of me, it can be as simple as you're communicating in a way that's scaring that person. Well, what do you mean? I'm just telling them what I need done. And that's an actual conversation I had recently with a business I'm working with. And it was, I don't understand why that would be scary at all. I'm not saying anything. I said, your tone. Huh? And when I put it that way to him, it brought him down a notch. I said, you're this hopped up right now telling me, how does that conversation look when you talk to that other person? I said, what you're saying is not scary to you. It makes this person uncomfortable because they don't want to disappoint you. So if you look angry, but I'm not angry, but you look angry, it's your tone.
Yeah.
That scares them. And I don't mean scares them like physically scares them, but that makes them afraid of making a mistake, which is resulting in them coming back to you in what that person perceived kind of in an annoying fashion of too much follow-up because they're terrified now of messing up. So if you can make them feel safer, they're not going to come to you as much. If you could put guidelines in, if this happens, you're welcome to do X, Y, or Z, and you give them more guidelines that they know they can work within, and then you have the self-control if something goes wrong to not fly off the handle, you're going to get better productivity out of this person.
So, because you kind of shared that not only is this a tool, a culture index, which individuals and organizations can kind of take, and then your role as a consultant on their behalf is to guide them through how to use it, interpret it, be aware when they're going into their characters to kind of pull back. I guess my question that begs asking is, this doesn't seem like a tool that every organization would be willing to use. Like, I would imagine there are certain characteristics of an ideal client for you where they say, yep, Tiffany, we get this, let's do it, versus no, we're not interested or we don't care about our people. Like, do you find that to be the case?
Well, sometimes it's not so much that they necessarily care about their people. I mean, although like that's great and a lot of them do, sometimes it's a more of a selfish motive.
Okay.
These are CEOs and business owners that are looking to grow their organization and they know they have people problems. And so for me, a person, a team that's working with me, if they have certain characteristics, it lets me be in my natural state and behave how I behave without heavily modifying myself. When I don't have certain people working with me, it's very exhausting for me to like slow down the way I do. To fight, right? To not offend. I'm a very direct communicator. So some of this is about for selfish reasons. When you get that right team in place, you get to be yourself, communicate how you naturally communicate and not have to modify as much. But for me, I'm looking for visionary business leaders. So these are people who innately, I show them the survey and they're like, I get it.
Yeah.
They are future thinking.
Yep.
They are proactive. They can lack a little bit of patience themselves, so they don't want to wait years to figure this out. They get that they need to put a little bit of time and resource into this now. And then they save time and money and grow in short order. When you don't have to continuously rehire for the same positions, or you're getting maximum output out of that position, it's a no-brainer. But you got to put in the work first, right? And so you're asking somebody, we're going to do these workshops, we're going to consult, we're going to work together. And so by putting a little bit of effort in now, it will actually decrease the amount of energy you have to put into this later by far.
You say two things that are really interesting to me is the idea of for somebody to typically embrace what you're saying is the benefit of it and to say we want to move forward is to be visionary. And then the other is you as you're having conversations with people that reveals their visionary up front, you talk about, you see white flags with them. You see things pertaining to, I think you said people problems. But what are some of the people problems that get revealed? And what are some of the characteristics of somebody who, as a senior executive or a business owner, you say, yeah, okay, you're the kind of person who seems like you would embrace this kind of opportunity to really get to know your people better?
So I like to remind everybody, there's no wrong people there, and there's no best personality out there. Okay. There are people who are made to do certain things. So in a company, depending on the position, who's going to fit into that role is going to look different, even from one company to the next. So it's not that there's necessarily a specific person they're looking for. Within that culture, there are different people who would fit in well and work well in that team. Often what's lacking at the executive leadership level is vision, is being proactive. So you have people who are risk averse, afraid to take action, and that winds up in a very major level halting growth. And often they'll go, well, we got this far, and now we're confused because we grew so much, and now we've been stuck here for a while. And they're not sure how to get to that next level. And often it's some of the key players there don't have that vision, don't have that push through. So for some of them, I've worked with CEOs who have gone to me, I think I'm part of the problem here. By
They're willing to actually they're capable of identifying that through some of their work with you, that they say, aha.
yeah,
Oh boy.
because when they start to go through it and understand it, and they understand themselves, and if they care about their company, okay, maybe they're not a visionary. Maybe they are risk averse. Maybe they aren't pushing things forward. They don't have that momentum. But now they're self-aware. They want to grow. Who can we bring in alongside them? Who are other people on their team that can push that growth for them? Because they know they're not going to be the one to be able to do it. And that takes a lot of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Willingness to look at themselves in the mirror.
I mean, that I would imagine in an engagement where you're working with a client and that happens, that's a really rewarding moment for you in your consulting with them. I guess I'm fascinated by this idea of they have that epiphany, the light bulb goes off and you were able to kind of help them have that kind of greater view inside themselves. As you've been doing this with the Culture Index, was there ever a time where there was such an amazing shift in terms of either the business owner or the leadership team starting out over here with you, and you were able to get them totally over here, that it fundamentally changed the way they viewed their business, their people? Like that to me would be really fascinating.
Yeah. So when I come in and start working with a company, depending on what the team looks like, and that's why I have this information first, right? I already have their surveys in front of me. Some are afraid. They don't know what I'm going to say. They're afraid of who they are. They already maybe there's something that doesn't fit right. That's not working. They feel that. So they're nervous. And they might even initially push it off like, I don't know if we need to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they have maybe a bit of imposter syndrome, or I'm going to be found out. And some people even take the survey and they'll try to manipulate it. And then they'll go back and avoid it in response. And I'll say, please just take that again. But once we go through the workshop and training and ongoing conversation, they then see the light and they start to work towards it. So I've had people sit in workshops and you have to say certain things, but not everything is rosy, right? You're going through these traits and you're not trying to call anybody out in a specific way. I have a pretty good grace about me that I can say things without attacking somebody, without attacking their character. Because again, the things that are often the best about us are the worst about us, right? So everything, it's a double-edged sword with a lot of things. But through the process, you'll see somebody go from being highly defensive. They'll question everything in the beginning, or they'll push back, or, oh, what do you think you're going to find out on survey? Blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden they start to see the buy-in around the room. And they start to hear it. And you kind of see at a certain moment, like, okay, maybe there's something of value here. And then in individual conversations, because sometimes they don't want to speak up in front of a room,
Right.
That's when we can start doing some more of the work, because they'll open up more. They don't necessarily want to open up in front of their boss about something that's been going on.
Is that a powerful tool for you in terms of, I would say leverage, because it's a negative connotation, but is that a powerful way for you to have a shift in mindset, maybe with the senior leadership team or an owner who's a little bit resistant to it? But then, as you said, you're in the room and people start kind of connecting dots and kind of seeing bigger picture and going, aha. Does that often kind of exert influence so that it shifts mindset with the senior leadership team? Because I would imagine that would be an effective tool for you, is to have the—
It depends.
Say it.
Depends on the person. Some personalities are very heavily influenced by others at the table. Others don't care at all. They won't even notice how other people are feeling about things or thinking about things. But I know how to spot that. So for some people, it's not necessarily that I'm going to go win them over, but I get other people to see the light, and then they're watching them and like, oh, well, if they think this, okay, it gives them safety in numbers. I'm not out there by myself, right? So it is fascinating. And I feel like I have this little like secret card where I know things about people that now when I meet someone and I don't have their survey in front of me, I'm like, wait, I don't even know how to talk to them. Like, because
And
I feel
that
like I'm
secret
missing
card
such a
is the
valuable piece.
the evaluation, the culture index is that secret card that you bring to the table.
Uh-huh. I've surveyed like everybody in my life.
I was laughing when we were talking before and you said that, and then you started going over my kind of results, my profile. And like I said, I mean, I've done assessments before, but you were like, you're this, but you could be this. And sometimes this happens. I'm like, yeah, it felt like you knew me we talked about this. You knew me for years and years. It was kind of, whoa, okay, you get me. You really get me. And I guess in terms of the consulting side, that would be a really powerful tool to get people maybe on the fence to go, okay, uh, everything that you're saying about me and my team is spot on. So tell me more.
Mm. I think what makes me a little unique in this position is my years of experience as a counselor combined now with my knowledge of culture index. It makes people open up to me. I know how to ask the questions. It's not about coming in and just telling people all these bad things about themselves, because who's going to want to hire me to do that? The goal is not to make somebody feel terrible by the end of the day. It's for them
Right.
to
Right.
understand themselves and others. But now we need a plan here. It's not just like, oh, great, I found out all these terrible things. We're never going to be successful. No, that's not the point. We know all these things. Now let's put a plan in place. What are we going to do to improve? Do we need to tweak some of these positions? Are some of these job responsibilities, depending on the size of the company, sometimes there's some fluidity in what somebody does. Maybe they're a great person. Sometimes they're family members, right? And I just said, well, your wife's not really suited to do this. And what's amazing is then the wife will go, I hate doing this. Okay, like, so it's not always just like, oh, come in and we're going to slash everybody out of here. No, it's not realistic. But sometimes it's a little bit of a shift in what somebody's responsibility is. Sometimes it's a shift in a little bit of the environment. Social profiles, people who are, outgoing, they'll love the company cocktail hour. They'll want to go do volunteer work and team building. And then to other people, that's like, are you kidding me? I've got to stay for a party after work.
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, right? And I'm like, people like me are like, oh, so my whole career I've been busy planning parties and not having any understanding that there's people who don't want to come.
Which as we talked about, that would be me. My wife would be you. She'd be planning it. But what do you mean you don't want to stay later and talk to everybody and you're not energized by the social interaction? Well, my culture index says, so therefore you should know I'm borderline introvert, which we talked about, the energy givers and the energy detractors. I also wanted to ask you a question about Team Spark Advisors and the future. Like, obviously, you just shared that you're going to be launching franchise number 3. So congratulations. But where do you see the next few years? Where do you see you taking the business?
Yeah, so I'm future thinking, right? We're growing. Yeah. I'm just getting started here, right?
Mhm.
The more businesses I can impact, it's very fulfilling for me. I've yet to meet a business owner who has said all our people are great. I've literally yet to have that happen. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation a few days ago with a small business owner. So he doesn't have much of a staff. So he didn't really maybe understand. He only works with like 1 or 2 other people. And he said, I'd love to introduce you to some people, but I feel like everybody I know already has a really good handle on it. They already have good people. And I said, well, I could see where you would think that.
Right.
Because in social settings, we don't walk in and like to tell everybody that somebody just quit, or you just had to fire somebody, or you just had to replace the same position 3 times, or you've got people on your executive team that are not fulfilling their promises. It doesn't come up in conversation because we want to paint a nice picture. And I get it. I wouldn't go air my dirty laundry in public either. So we assume these things aren't happening, or we think it's just happening to us and there's something wrong with us because everybody else has a handle on it and we don't.
Yeah.
When I talk to them, it brings it down on the whole, it opens it up. And it's like, oh, somebody's finally asking me about this. And we'll start the conversation with like, everybody's great here. And then we'll start going through profiles and they're like, this one, it's been a nightmare. And this is going on here. And I don't know how to handle this one. And usually there's this feeling of, as humans, we want to think we can fix things. So, well, they're kind of new. And I'm like, what's kind of new? 2 years. I was like, oh, wait, 2 years isn't new. And we want to think that if we just put in the effort, that they'll get there. They just need more training. They just need more help.
Yeah.
And in certain instances, things can improve, but they're not going to get all the way there. You're not going to turn somebody into somebody they're not through increased training.
So if somebody was at the point where they said, Tiffany, I heard what you have to say, and we're at the point where we need to unstick, and we really could benefit from having some of the insight, because we really don't know if we looked at our people, who's where, and do we have the right people in the right roles? How would they get in touch with you and set up some time to kind of pick your brain?
So you can go to teamsparkadvisors.com.
Yep.
My contact information's on there. And I'd be happy to just set up a 15-minute phone call with them, get some information, and see if there's something I could do to help.
And by the way, all of your kind of contact information will be below.
Down below. Just go to that information because I know you're not going to remember it from what I just said. So you can email me.
Advisors.
Yeah, go to my website. I'm on LinkedIn, Tiffany Lynn Slowinski. Find a way to contact me. It's a 15-minute conversation, or you could take my survey, get a little information about yourself. I don't see a downside in learning a little something about yourself today.
And that's what I was going to also ask you, is the possibility of them completing the survey, because it's one thing for you to kind of explain the impact, the positive impact of it. It's another thing, what you did with me was to walk me through it and see how truly revealing it is. And especially areas, as you said, as a business owner, where you might be afraid to admit you don't know everything, or you're not sure what you don't know. It really shines a light. And I wanted to say thank you for coming on the show today and sharing this critically important information. It's about time that businesses and business owners are starting to take a look at themselves and the people around them and get to genuinely understand them.
Thank you. And I really appreciate, Ethan, you allowing me to come on your podcast and giving me this platform today.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. So again, Tiffany Slowinski, Team Spark Advisors, and be sure to like the video, sign up for the channel, subscribe to the channel, and thanks, Tiffany, for coming on the program today.
Thank you, Ethan.